Hello, Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for the Cuckoo's Fiancee, Chapter 73. When we last left our heroes, I just randomly showed up in Erika's bedroom and challenged her for a competition, to a competition for Nagi's heart. Nagi's not super on board with this, but Erika is just kind of tired of I, who has popped up into her house at random, and says that if she wins, I is banned from setting foot in the house ever again and accepts the challenge. We're then treated to a game of darts as both of them kind of press each other on various questions about their lives and about Nagi. Specifically, we don't find out why. Erika asks I why she wants to marry Nagi. I does not actually give an answer, so we don't quite know why exactly, she likes Nagi so much. But the last question that I asked Erika is, do you like Nagi or do you dislike him? And then she eventually says, if you can land the bullseye, that means you like him. Which she does. That's kind of where we left off. Also a little bit about I deciding that it doesn't really matter because her true enemy for Nagi's heart is Sachi. Yeah. Anyway, let's dive right on into chapter 73. 73rd foul, why don't we move on to the next stage? And our picture here is I in what looks like a maid outfit, kind of leaning on this heart-shaped chair. It's definitely interesting. The battle against Erika is over, making Ai-chan's new enemy Sachi. So I guess, we are focusing on that. As it seems we're kind of in the aftermath of last week's chapter, because the dart is still on the bullseye, shocking everyone. Erika just stares at it, kind of mouth agape. Nagi and Sachi are both in various states of surprise. But I just tells them, now that I have a grasp of the current situation, I'll be taking my leave. I do not like her grasp of the current situation. It's a bad grasp of the current situation. But with that, she just kind of walks out, kind of shocking Nagi. Huh? And I just doesn't turn back, and Nagi calls, wait a minute, Ai-chan. And Nagi turns back to the girls. Amino-san, take care of Sachi. And he leaves them. And there's this awkward moment where the two of them just kind of stare at each other for a bit. And Erika goes on, I know he told me to take care of you, but it's not like you're a child or anything, right? And then Erika kind of goes on, gee, I wonder what's even going on here. What did she mean by arch nemesis? I mean, I'm glad, they're dancing around that meaning, because I don't want them to confront it, but I know they will confront it. I kind of talked before, in that, I don't want Sachi chapters to ever happen, but I know they will, so there's another part of me that wants them to just, play out that arc in its entirety and just kind of be done with it. It's a bit of a awkward situation there. It's an awkward thing in general. I don't know. Anyway, Sachi responds, who knows? Ai-chan's always been kind of weird. Probably just her intuition? And I'm trying to work out who seems more nervous. Because my first instinct would be Sachi. Because Sachi, has these feelings for Nagi, and doesn't really want them out in the open for obvious reasons. But they both kind of have the exact same sweat drop. They both have the same kind of 3 sweat things off to the side of their heads. They're showing the same amount of nervousness. It's a really interesting, mirroring detail Yoshikawa has going on there. Though also, that's almost certainly an instance of me looking way too deep into it. Anyway, Sachi goes on, come to think of it, Erika-chan, that last throw was kind of amazing. I guess. I mean, yeah, given what that last throw kind of signified in the end, it's more than just kind of amazing. It's a statement on her attraction, though I guess neither of them quite want to vocalize that yet. So both of them just kind of sit in silence, Sachi munching on her popcorn, Erika sipping on her soda, and Erika stares out the window and then asks, So just what is Ai-chan's and Nagi-kun anyway? And Sashi takes a bite of popcorn and thinks about it for a sec. A childhood friend who came back from abroad to marry him? But Nagi-kun already has Hiro-chan, doesn't he? And Sashi just kind of responds, yeah. And Erika kind of thinks, and I'm his fiance. And Sachi thinks, I'm his sister. And the same train of thought as I'm his fiance, which is a take. I mean, like, even if you accept that they're not blood related and so it's not completely amoral for them to get together, the fact that Sachi says I'm his sister mirrored with Erika's and I'm his fiance in this thought about the web of romantic entanglements Nagi is kind of stuck in the middle of. It's a choice. It's a bad choice. It's a bad choice. But, my thoughts on that have been well documented. For the past year and a half I've been reviewing this series. Nagi Sachi has never gotten any better, and it never will. Anyway, the two of them continue in their thoughts. Actually, Nagi-kun's letting destiny take total control. I have no idea what that means. Is that just kind of he's going with the flow sort of thing? It's a very particular word choice. I'm really kind of curious about that, because, if it was he's just kind of going with the flow and not saying no to anyone, that'd be one thing, but letting destiny take control is kind of the same meaning, but it's such heightened language compared to how Erika and Sachi normally talk. I don't know. And Nagi reacts to that. I'm letting destiny control my life? So apparently Ai has kind of vocalized that thought to Nagi, or else all three of them are having that thought at the same time, maybe? And Ai is just the one who sort of vocalized, which honestly, I will say though, it would make a bit more sense if I were the one who said that. I was the one who said that. Sorry, I'm getting I the name and I the first person pronoun mixed up. It would make more sense if I was the first person who said that. Because that kind of heightened language feels a bit more in character for her. She's this sort of, whereas Erika and Sachi both wear normal-ish clothes. Erika's like a rich influencer, and so her clothes are kind of higher class. And Sachi's is sort of a mid to lower class teenager. Ai is just her, fashion sense, just this heightened thing. We see her in, the maid outfit in the cover, and that's, seems kind of par for the course for her. She tends to wear these outfits with lots of frills, as we saw in our kind of intro chapters. It definitely feels like it's more of an I thing to talk like that, letting destiny take total control. Anyway, back to the actual plot. It's one of those late night reviews where I start rambling really easily, and that's my bad. Either way, I nods, and Nagi tries to counter, well, you're wrong. I'm making my own destiny. And Ai presses, are you sure about that? It looks like you're desperately struggling to me. And he flashes back to scenes with with Erika, Hiro, and Sachi. Erika's, because you're my fiance. Hiro's, I have a fiance. And Sachi's, so you can't get married either. The first two, I don't quite recognize what scene they are. I know what scene Sachi's from. That's the chapter 61 bit, which I think might actually be that chapter's... It's not the chapter's title line. Scrolling through the table of content on Cat Manga. But it is one of the better written Sachi chapters. So it's nice to have a callback to that bit when Sachi was written fairly competently. Very well written, as much as I just hate the plot of that chapter. Anyway, that tangent aside, Nagi kind of looks away. Well, maybe. And Ai presses, in that case, let me tell you something. Right now, you're being completely bogged down by this destiny of yours. And Nagi's kind of confused there, huh? Bogged down? And he has this image of himself, like, shoulder deep in a bog, which definitely calls back last week's next time blurb of Nagi gets swamped, which is probably what I was referring to. And I continues, that's right. You can't be sure what's up ahead, and you don't know how much longer the situation will last, but while it persists, anxiety and fear will consume you. And we see this image of Nagi trying to get out of the bog. Damn it! How did this happen? I can't. If I don't get out now, I might. And he has this image of Erika, Hiro, and Sachi all trying to pull him out. Come on, give it all you've got. We can do this. Don't go leaving me behind. And that's how the four of you ended up struggling in desperation together. Okay, I'm trying to work out that metaphor. What exactly, or not so much the metaphor itself, but what is she getting at here? What is Ai's goal with planting this metaphor in Nagi's mind? Is it to just let me see if I can find the right words for this. Is she trying to present herself as the way out of the bog? Get rid of all of them. But no, because the weird thing is, my initial impression is that the bog in the metaphor is the other girls. But the other girls are also in the bog, trying to get out of the bog. So what is actually causing this? Is this vague concept of destiny she's thrown in there? Because we've heard destiny referred to a couple of times, specifically with Hiro. But the idea that Nagi is letting destiny control his life is kind of brand new. I really, I'm kind of confused with all of this. Where exactly is all this going? I'm just going to let it play out a little bit and see if I can work out what the fuck is going on. Anyway, Nagi in the hallucination sort of stands in shock at the girls helping him, and that's how the four of you ended up struggling in desperation together. And then we see Erika, and this is still in the bog metaphor. This isn't working. And Sachi, grabs onto her. No, Erika! And Hiro, kind of distracted. I won't lose to you, Umino-kun. And Nagi gets onto her. Is this the time for that? And Nagi kind of, lets the metaphor play out in his head, just kind of confused. And Ai continues, but no one is yet to realize. You can rise up from this bog. And we have this image of Ai standing in the bog, whereas the rest of the gang is up to their chest, vaguely, area. For Ai, it only reaches up to, a bit below her knees. She's also, what feels kind of important, kind of raising her skirt up over the bog. So, continuing. You can rise up from this bog. And also, you can always be pulled out of it. And she has the image, like I kind of alluded to, of her pulling Nagi out of the bog. And it's just, I'm a little bit confused as to what the bog is. Because if the bog was the twisting attractions of the two girls and Sachi, that would make sense for Ai being the one to kind of save him from that. If that's how she sees herself. But they're in there. Actually, looking at this metaphor, they're all being pulled out of the bog. So maybe she sees herself as the one to save not just Nagi, but the three girls? I can't figure out why, though. Also, I feel like it is kind of important that Ai is keeping herself clean in this metaphor. I don't know why, but there's all this attention drawn to her, lifting her skirt so it doesn't get caught in the mud. Whereas, Nagi and Sachi and Erika and Hiro are all kind of covered in dirt all over. Hers just kind of stays on her stockings. There's definitely something going on here, and I cannot figure out where the hell this metaphor is going. And Nagi just kind of takes it all in and kind of looks away. If it were that easy, then I would have already done it ages ago. And Ai laughs. You're as stubborn as ever, aren't you, Nagi-chan? What? Instead, and she kind of snaps her fingers, how about we put it this way? Let's leave this bitter destiny behind, and move on to the next stage. Okay, the weird thing is that's almost this week's chapter title. Because the chapter title is, Why Don't We Move On to the Next Stage? And that's not quite what she says, but it's a specific enough line I can't see her saying move on to the next stage twice. I don't know. In more important notes, though, my guess is, what she's saying is, let's abandon all of them and run off together. But in all of this metaphor, she hasn't quite really asserted how she will save him from the bog. Like, she's kind of telling him that she's all important, but she's not really providing any evidence of that. Which maybe you could tie in with... I'm trying to tie it into, like, the big thing I've kind of noticed from Ai that I've called out in the past, is that she sees Nagi as an object for her to win, romantically. We see it with the mind-beloved Nagi-chan, the way this whole competition with Erika is kind of completely ignoring Nagi's feelings. And I'm trying to tie that in with this metaphor, and I can't quite do it yet. Maybe I'll find a way at some point, but this chapter's just really confusing for me. And maybe it's just like, 12:20 at night, and I'm a little bit, just slightly hazy. I feel like I'm mostly there, and it's just the chapter. But, like, maybe I'll come back in a couple of days and be like, actually, this makes perfect sense. I was just really tired. But I can't see that right now. Anyway, let's leave this bitter destiny behind and move on to the next stage. And Nagi presses, can we really do that? We can. Think about it. You're already 17 years old, and I'm 18. Meaning both of us would be able to get married immediately. And we see they've come to this, like, on this little terrace they've been standing on, there's, like, a sign that just says love on it. And Ai is now right in front of it. Anyway, Nagi kind of blushes. Well, sure, but... And we see this image of the Statue of Liberty. Don't you see? What I'm saying is, right now, this instant, you can be happy if you're with me. In other words, and she does this heart as she stands in front of the love with the O heart, and I guess that's a replica Statue of Liberty behind her. Just kind of there. I love you so much, Nagi-chan. And she just smiles, this little, like, cat smile. And Nagi kind of looks at her, blushes, and, like, looks away. Thanks. Okay. Don't say thanks when someone says I love you. I don't think that's quite the right response. I mean, like, he doesn't love her, which is kind of the obvious thing. She just kind of walked back into his life. But thanks just doesn't quite seem like the right response there. Anyway, Ai just turns and walks away. With that, I'll take my leave. Say what you want about Ai. And besides Sachi, she's definitely, like, lowest on the potential romantic outcomes for me. But, like, she knows how to leave. She does exactly what she wants to do, and then she gets out. That's her whole thing. And I can respect that, just a little bit. But Nagi calls after her. What? Ai-chan? Wait! And he goes after her, and he falls over. Which feels a little bit tied in with the bog metaphor. As he thinks for a sec, what the? My legs! And kind of struggles to get up. What happened? What just happened? And we see, what is kind of the money shot. His clutching his chest, it's a 2-page spread, heart thumping. Yeah, it is not the normal money shot art style. I think we've only seen it like once before. And you know what? I complained a while back of a kind of repetition of the style of the money shots. But this is unique enough. It's a good panel. And it does the kind of thing that Chapter 62 did, where, the background fades away, and nothing here matters but Nagi and his own heartbeat. His own kind of whatever feeling Ai has just kicked up in him. That's really the only thing that matters in this moment. So, I'm always on board with that kind of visual storytelling Yoshikawa occasionally engages in, and you can only watch Ai walk off. Interestingly enough, the man Ai is in love with just fell over, and she does not turn back. And that feels much easier to tie into her view of Nagi as a possession to be won than the bog metaphor did. And it's, one of those things that does not particularly shine a great light onto Ai. Yeah. Anyway, he's watching after Ai. That was the first time in my life a girl's ever confessed to me. His feelings shoot right through him. Next time, Nagi's time with the ladies is now. But first he must face... yeah, that's where we leave off. Okay, So, God, I'm really caught up in this bog metaphor. I don't know where she's going with this. Like, is she saying, the idea, you can rise up from this bog, and also you can always be pulled out of it. But it's weird, because even in the same metaphor, that's what Hiro, Erika, and Sachi are doing. The difference kind of being that they are in the bog. Ai kind of puts herself above it. Which is... I feel like there's something there. I feel like I'm scratching the surface of something. Kind of that she sees herself as above everything. She sees herself as above the rest of the cast. She's saving Nagi somehow by freeing him from Erika and Hiro and no one else. And again, I think that does tie into her view of Nagi as just kind of a possession. She's on a different level than him. It's not quite the same language of possession that she uses with My Beloved Super Ball or anything. But it definitely does put the two of them on kind of different planes. She's this savior who reaches in and saves him from the destiny, the going with the flowness that's left him in this situation. Which, is kind of... It's a dynamic she's trying to craft, and I don't think it's particularly healthy. Like these chapters, not with Sachi chapters, of course, but I'm primarily a Nagi Eri shipper, but the hero chapters kind of push me over towards the hero team, even if I always kind of swing back towards Erika. But these Ai chapters tend to push me away from Ai. She's possessive in a really uncomfortable way. It's this very sort of, you are mine and I'm on a completely different level than you. You are my possession. Mine beloved is directly tied with the ball. It's very kind of possessive doesn't quite sound right, because possessive has different connotations in romantic relationships, of course, but it's very kind of ownership in a way. That's the vibe I'm thinking of. So yeah, Ai is a hot mess. I'm definitively not Team Ai. If this video did not make that clear, though in a very different way that I'm not Team Sachi, I'm still just not Team Ai. Unfortunately, going back to the beginning of the chapter, we don't get any more follow-up with Erika's great darts throw and what that means for her relationship with Nagi. We can kind of let that sit. We all know what that means, even if the rest of the gang isn't quite admitting it. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this chapter. There's a lot here, and it does not make me a Nagi Ai shipper at all. But the chapter itself was interesting. It's a chapter that had a lot to kind of dig into in some fun ways. And I don't know, we'll just kind of have to wait and see where all of this goes from here on out. But yeah, I'm gonna leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, do whatever makes you happy, And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!